David Suzuki joins me in the studio. I want to ask you first, you've described our consumption of genetically modified food as a massive experiment. That's what science is about, it's experiments. What's your primary concern about this one?
Well, the point I make is that we have no idea what the long-term consequences of these genetic manipulations will be on the public. There is no way that our health authorities can test all possible combinations and permutations over a large enough population over a long enough period to be able to say with a surety that they're harmless. So basically, by slipping it into our food without our knowledge, without any indication that there are genetically modified organisms in our food, we are now unwittingly part of a massive experiment. Over years, as thousands and thousands of people continue to consume this, we will provide the data which will allow us ultimately to conclude whether or not there's any danger.
In approving the foods that it has, Health Canada says that they've looked for toxins and allergens, but that essentially at the end of it, a potato is a potato, and if it doesn't have either one of those things in it, it's safe.
Yes.
Why isn't it?
Well, essentially, the U.S. FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, has said that genetically modified organisms or food are basically not much different from regular food, and so they'll be treated in the same way. The problem is this. Geneticists follow the inheritance of genes in what we call a vertical fashion. You breed a male and a female, you follow their offspring, you breed them, you follow it on down, within a species. What biotechnology allows us to do is to take genes from this organism and move it, what we call horizontally, into a totally unrelated species. Now, David Suzuki doesn't normally mate with a carrot plant and exchange genes. What biotechnology allows us to do is to switch genes from one to the other without regard to the biological constraints.
Now, I mean, you're a geneticist. You know this field better than any of us. Why is that of particular concern?
Well, the problem is this. You see, it's very, very bad science. We assume that the principles governing the inheritance of genes vertically applies when you move genes laterally or horizontally. There's absolutely no reason to make that conclusion. We've got to do much more experimentation.
And yet we're dealing with such small bits.
Oh, sure. But one of those small bits can determine the difference between whether you're, in a human being, a mutation can determine whether you're crippled or you die. I mean, because they're tiny, a tiny part of it doesn't mean they are not potent. And the point is, when you move a gene, one tiny gene, as you say, out of this organism into a different one, you change completely its context. And there is no way at the present time that we can predict how that's going to behave and what the outcome will be.